Allez, mon petit est en dessous là. Toi, t'es vraiment mignonne. Allez, mon petit est en dessous.
Allez, demi-tour. Circule là.
The film begins at the CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Agent Vivi DeLay meets with the CIA director and another man to discuss a high-priority target. This target is Wolfgang Braun, a dangerous man known as Wolf. The man is working with his partner, the albino, to sell weapons to terrorists. Vivi is assigned to eliminate both of them. She asks if any agent is already on site and learns it is Ethan Renner. Later, Ethan appears at a hotel in Paris, where he and Agent Yasmin are tasked with stopping the albino before he completes a deal with a Serbian buyer. Ethan took down the weapons buyers and quickly exchanged the briefcase containing secret codes with the albino. He planned to deliver the documents to other agents waiting in a truck. But just then, his phone rang a reminder that it was his daughter Zoe's birthday. Ethan rushed to a public phone booth. Without any change, he traded his watch with a nearby vendor for a few coins to call his daughter. Ethan called Zoe but reached only her voicemail. Meanwhile, at the hotel, the albino discovered Yasmin's true identity. He dragged her into an elevator, waited for the doors to close, and then decapitated her. Outside, his accomplices opened fire on the agents in the vehicle, sparking a gunfight from the hotel lobby to the street. Ethan immediately chased the albino, took down the accomplice, and continued pursuing the killer. Ethan began to weaken, staggering as he chased the albino. When he finally reached him, Ethan collapsed, but still managed to shoot him in the leg. The albino limped away, and Ethan lost consciousness. When he woke up in the hospital, the doctor delivered bad news. He had cancer that had spread to his lungs and only had about 3 to 5 months to live. Ethan returned to his apartment and was surprised to find a strange family living there. The man, Jules, greeted him cheerfully and explained that they were refugees in need of a place to stay. Ethan considered objecting but was warned that evicting them could get him in legal trouble. He pointed a gun at Jules but then changed his mind and agreed to let them stay until Jules' eldest daughter had her baby. Ethan called his ex-wife, Tina, while she was out with friends. At first, she hesitated, but when she learned it was urgent, she agreed to meet him. They met to sign the will. Ethan revealed that he was dying and did not want Zoe to know. He just wanted to see his daughter. Tina agreed, but on one condition: he had to quit his job and cut all ties with them. Ethan agreed to Tina's condition. They went together to pick up Zoe from school. The meeting between father and daughter was awkward, and Zoe seemed uninterested in talking to him. Then, a well-dressed older young man approached to greet Zoe. She introduced him as Hugh. When he met Ethan, Hugh was polite but clearly cautious. After Hugh left, Ethan gave Zoe a purple bicycle, thinking it was still her favorite color. But Zoe chose to take the subway with her friends, leaving Ethan to drive alone. On his way back, Ethan stopped at a station and unexpectedly ran into Vivi. She mentioned Zoe and returned the watch he had left at the hotel. Vivi then proposed a partnership and invited him to work with her. Ethan refused to work for Vivi until she mentioned an experimental drug that could save his life. Hearing this, he changed his mind. Vivi assigned him the mission to track down and kill Wolf. She took him to a hotel to find someone who could provide information about the albino's accountant. Vivi said there was only one person in the room, but when Ethan broke in, he discovered 5 people were there. Finally, when no one would provide information, Ethan and Vivi eliminated the entire group. In the elevator, Ethan made it clear that he would continue working only if he was paid $50,000 and received a $1 million life insurance policy. Vivi agreed and injected him with the drug. In the next scene, the albino met a stranger and handed him a photo of Ethan, instructing him to keep it safe. Ethan went to Tina and Zoe's apartment and heard screaming from inside. Thinking Zoe was in danger, he immediately broke in. In reality, she was just upset about her messy hair. Tina was annoyed because Ethan had promised to cook dinner but was 3 hours late. She said she would have to travel to London for work the next day and planned to call a babysitter for Zoe. However, Ethan insisted on taking care of his daughter himself. Afterward, Ethan began feeling dizzy and passed out. He called Vivi saying he was experiencing hallucinations. She told him to drink a little vodka to feel better, and he followed her advice. The next morning, Tina left for work, and Zoe appeared wearing a red wig. When Vivi called, Ethan told Zoe that it was just his boss. Zoe set Iconopop's song, "I Don't Care" as her ringtone whenever she called Ethan. Once again, Ethan tried to persuade her to ride her bike to school, but she chose to walk and accidentally dropped her wig. Later, Ethan met Vivi again. She handed him the promised check and reminded him to keep his heart rate stable. She also told him to find a car dealer named Mithat Yilmaz. Ethan went to the dealership, insulted and knocked out Mithat's staff, then waited in the office until Mithat returned. He threatened to harm Mithat's family and forced him to go back to the apartment. At that moment, Zoe's school called, asking Ethan to meet the principal. With no other choice, he stuffed Mithat into the trunk and drove there. Ethan and Zoe met the principal and learned that Zoe had hit a classmate. On the way out, Zoe explained she hit the student because they had teased a student from Pakistan. Ethan was not angry, seeing it as an effective way to deal with a bully. Meanwhile, Mithat made noise in the trunk, forcing Ethan to hit him to keep him quiet. Zoe walked away, annoyed by Ethan's behavior and persistent coughing. Later, she called back to apologize and arranged to meet him at her favorite place, a small amusement park with the flying chairs ride she loved most. Although Ethan had planned to continue tracking the accountant, he decided to put everything aside to see his daughter. After playing, the father and daughter sat down to drink hot chocolate. Zoe said she had to go to a study group with her lab partner. Ethan left and stopped by a store where a man with a gun attacked him. The man fired, but Ethan was unharmed, likely because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. They fought, and the attacker stabbed Ethan in the neck. But in the end, he was shot and killed. Ethan realized the attacker was holding a photo of him. When he got home, he saw a message on Zoe's computer from her friend, arranging to meet at the tattoo gallery. Worried, Ethan immediately rushed there. At the scene, he found a car containing Zoe's bag. He broke into the car and discovered a flyer with the name of a place called Spider. Ethan went to Mithat's house and asked his twin daughters about Spider. They said it was a party restaurant. Ethan arrived at the place, a noisy, crowded nightclub, and saw Zoe drinking with her friends. His dizziness returned, forcing him to take a sip of vodka to steady himself. He quietly followed Zoe and noticed 3 men harassing her near the bathroom area. A friend of the group tried to stop Ethan, but he quickly took down everyone. He then safely escorted Zoe out of the nightclub. The next morning, Zoe woke up with no memory of the previous night. She was still wearing the same dress and getting ready for school, but Ethan reminded her not to dress like that again. Ethan insisted that Zoe ride her bike to school, but she angrily reminded him that he had never taught her. Feeling guilty, he spent the entire morning teaching her. Passers-by applauded as they saw the father and daughter happily together. Later, Zoe burst into tears and asked why he had stayed away for so many years. She had thought he had another family with another daughter, but Ethan assured her that had never happened. As the father and daughter continued their outing, Zoe admitted she had hit a classmate because that student was flirting with Hugh. Later, they met Hugh as he was about to take Zoe to school. At the same time, Ethan spotted the accountant, Guido, being escorted down the street. He threw a tear gas grenade into the vehicle carrying him, captured Guido, and blew up the truck to block any pursuit. Ethan brought Guido to his apartment to exchange the briefcase he had taken earlier for another one, containing the code that could trigger the explosives held by the wolf and the albino. Meanwhile, Zoe called Ethan, saying she wanted to cook a vegetarian dinner for Hugh. Ethan contacted Guido and asked him to share his mother's famous pasta sauce recipe to help Zoe. That evening, when Ethan returned home, he discovered that Jules' daughter was about to give birth. She delivered a healthy baby girl and decided to name her after Ethan to thank him for letting them stay. Jules said they would leave as promised, but Ethan told them they could stay as long as they wanted. However, Jules mentioned that her family wanted to move to a smaller house so everyone could live closer together. Ethan returned to Zoe's home and learned that Hugh had invited her to a dance. Zoe was worried because she didn't know how to dance, so Ethan taught her right in the living room. At that moment, Tina came home and saw the father and daughter dancing together. She stood silently, her eyes welling up with tears. Afterwards, the three of them sat down for dinner like a real family. When the meal ended, Tina advised Ethan to tell Zoe about his health condition soon. Finally, Ethan and Tina spent the night together, rekindling their old relationship. The next morning, Vivi called with urgent news. The albino was at the Grand Hotel. Ethan rushed there and discovered that the wolf was also present. They jumped into a car driven by Maitat and fled. Ethan gave chase, crashing repeatedly. And eventually pushed the car off an overpass. The wolf and the albino managed to escape, but Ethan spared Maitat so he could return to his family. Ethan chased the criminals into the subway station, but started to have a nosebleed and feel dizzy. As he aimed at the wolf, the albino suddenly pulled him toward the tracks. The wolf shouted orders to kill Ethan, but the albino hesitated. Just as the train approached, Ethan forced himself up and pushed the albino in front of the train, killing him instantly. Ethan fainted while the wolf escaped. When he woke up, he was at Vivi's house. She reminded him that the wolf had gotten away but also gave good news. The treatment was working. Later, Ethan, Zoe, and Tina went to meet Hugh and his family. Everything went smoothly until Hugh's father introduced a business partner who turned out to be the wolf. Ethan and the wolf recognized each other and shook hands awkwardly. Hugh's parents led the group into a luxurious club. Tina finally realized that Ethan was on a mission. She was angry, thinking he had lied, but Ethan assured her he hadn't. Suddenly, the wolf's men opened fire on Ethan. He immediately chased them down, defeated the thugs, and cornered the wolf in an elevator. Ethan shot the elevator cable, causing it to fall and shatter. Meanwhile, Hugh and Zoe found a private room where they danced and shared their first kiss. The wolf survived and crawled out of the elevator. Ethan found him but grew weak and couldn't fire. His gun fell, and the wolf tried to grab it. At that moment, Vivi appeared and pushed the gun toward Ethan, helping him finish off his enemy. Thinking of Tina and Zoe, Ethan couldn't bring himself to shoot and lowered his gun. Vivi quickly grabbed it and personally killed the wolf. Time passed and Ethan lived with Zoe in a house near the beach. He decorated a Christmas tree, something he once thought he wouldn't live to do. Meanwhile, he talked with Tina, acknowledging that they had gone through difficult days, but were still trying to maintain their family bond. Tina arrived, and Ethan honestly admitted that he hadn't always been there for her and Zoe as he should have. Zoe stepped forward, smiling, and invited her mother inside while Ethan made hot chocolate for them. He withdrew to another room, giving the mother and daughter some private time. Sitting with Tina, Zoe quietly asked if Ethan wanted to stay with them. Meanwhile, Ethan discovered a box containing a large syringe and a note from Vivi wishing him a Merry Christmas. She had left a dose of medicine to help him continue living with his family. From a distance, Vivi silently watched them through the window, smiling.